Let's stop pretending this is some family misunderstanding or temporary cold shoulder. This isn't William being upset. This isn't him being hurt. This is something colder, sharper, and far more dangerous. Prince William is done, completely done. Not with a conversation, not with a warning, with an ending. Behind closed palace doors, the message has already been delivered, and it's brutal in its simplicity. Harry and Meghan are no longer a problem to be managed. They are a liability to be removed. And William is not emotional about it. He's surgical. Everything people assume is untouchable is suddenly on the table. Titles, status, protection, access, even the children. Nothing is sacred anymore if it threatens the monarchy. William isn't negotiating, and he's not bluffing. He's willing to be painted as the villain if that's what it takes to protect the crown. And that's exactly why panic has finally set in, because Harry and Meghan now realize something they never fully believed before. William will actually do it. This didn't start overnight. William didn't wake up one morning and decide to burn his brother's life to the ground. He was pushed there, cornered there, forced there by scandal after scandal that refused to stay buried. The Andrew situation exploded again. Epstein, the lies, the money questions, the emails threatening to surface. It wasn't just ugly, it was radioactive. The kind of mess that doesn't just stain one person but seeps into the entire institution. Then there was Fergie. Years of financial dependency, questionable judgment, behavior that made the monarchy look unserious, reckless, and weak. Inside the palace, something shifted. The conversation stopped being about loyalty and started being about survival. William's view was blunt and terrifyingly clear. If the rot isn't cut out now, it will destroy everything later. And once he framed it that way, names stopped being protected. Andrew wasn't complicated anymore. Fergie wasn't embarrassing. They were risks. And when William labels someone a risk, the clock starts ticking. Here's the mistake Harry and Meghan made, and it's a big one. They thought public pressure would save them. People begged Parliament to strip their titles. Petitions flew. Social media roared. But Parliament's response was ice cold. This isn't our job. Titles belong to the monarch. And William understands that system better than anyone. He doesn't need public outrage. He doesn't need approval ratings. He doesn't need permission from Harry, Meghan, or anyone else. When the time comes, the paperwork moves quietly, legally, and permanently. This is a constitutional monarchy, and everyone inside it understands the unspoken rule. If the crown becomes a problem, Parliament steps in, William sees that pressure building, Charles tries to soften it, William prepares to end it. That's the shift. This isn't gossip anymore. This is a cleanup operation, and Harry and Meghan are on the list. Here's the uncomfortable truth people don't want to say out loud. King Charles doesn't want this war. He still believes things can be managed with time, silence, and carefully planted leaks. He wants the noise to fade. He wants Harry to behave just enough. He wants Meghan to stop poking the bear. He wants peace. William wants closure. Inside the family, the divide is no longer subtle. Charles delays, William presses. At a certain point, the conversation stops being polite. William's stance hardens. If we allow this to continue, it never ends. Charles worries about optics. William worries about damage. And the longer Charles hesitates, the more pressure builds. Not just from the public, but from advisors, Parliament, and the institution itself. Because if the crown looks weak, it becomes replaceable. Charles knows this. He just doesn't want to be the one who pulls the trigger. William has no such hesitation. And this is where the fear finally sinks in for Harry and Meghan. They're not confused, they're not misreading signals. They know William doesn't want them back. They know the door isn't just closed, it's sealed. And they know their leverage is gone. For years they believed the family wouldn't dare go all the way. That blood would protect them, that the crown would blink first. It won't. Inside their circle, the fear isn't about feelings. It's about survival. Their entire relevance is built on royal status. Every deal, every appearance, every ounce of influence traces back to those titles. Without them, they're ordinary. No royal authority, no institutional backing, no safety net. And that reality is terrifying. Meghan built her identity around being a duchess. Harry built his around being the wronged prince. William is preparing to erase both narratives in a single move. And there is no comeback plan because William will not allow one. This is the part they never took seriously. Title removal isn't symbolic, it isn't petty. Once it happens, it's over. Harry stops being Prince Harry. He becomes Henry Mountbatten Windsor. No royal styling, no royal standing, no automatic respect. Meghan stops being the Duchess of Sussex. She becomes Mrs. Mountbatten Windsor. Legally, socially, institutionally. No HR, no royal branding, no implied authority, no confusion. William understands something Harry never did. Ambiguity is power's worst enemy, so he removes it entirely. This isn't revenge, it's clarity. Once the titles are gone, the monarchy moves forward. The Sussex chapter closes. Permanently. This is where William draws a line his grandmother never fully enforced. For years, royal royal decrees were ignored, HRH styling used when it shouldn't have been, titles implied for commercial gain, rules treated like suggestions. Elizabeth set boundaries, people crossed them. William won't tolerate that. Inside the palace, the message is blunt. The rules mean something again. This isn't punishment, it's enforcement. William understands that once rules stop being enforced, authority collapses, so he restores it the only way that works. Consequences. No warnings, no second chances, no emotional appeals. The titles go because the rules were broken. End of story. And this is the moment where it becomes impossible to call William petty, emotional, or personal. Because he isn't just cutting off Harry and Meghan, he's rewriting how royal privilege works, starting with his own house. Inside the palace, William makes his position unmistakably clear. Titles are not birthright armor, they are roles tied to service. And if someone doesn't serve, the title means nothing. That logic doesn't stop with the Sussexes. William is prepared to delay or even remove royal titles from his own younger children unless they choose to become working royals. No automatic styling, no permanent privilege, no guaranteed place unless it's earned. That decision lands like a shockwave, because no one expected him to go that far. This isn't a father clinging to tradition. This is a future king dismantling entitlement in real time. William knows that if he demands discipline from others, he has to live by it himself. And this is where the contrast becomes brutal. William knows his children will survive without titles. They'll have identity, stability, and purpose regardless of how they're addressed. Harry and Meghan built everything on those titles. One side sees titles as responsibility, the other sees them as survival. And once William made that distinction clear, the argument was over. When Meghan realized William was serious, she didn't calm down. She panicked. Instead of preparing for life without royal status, she tried to lock the title down before it could be taken, treating Duchess of Sussex like intellectual property, like a brand she could own, trademark, and protect. Inside palace circles, the reaction was almost dismissive. She still doesn't get it. A royal title isn't a brand. It isn't transferable. It doesn't belong to the person using it. It belongs to the institution. William's response wasn't angry, it was final. Because once titles are stripped, no trademark survives, no paperwork saves it, no rebrand protects it. That wasn't a power move, it was fear. And fear is never respected in a monarchy. When the decision is executed, there's no dramatic explosion inside the palace, no shouting, no emergency summits, no last-minute deals, just silence and paperwork. Because that's how the monarchy actually ends things, quietly, permanently. Harry becomes Henry Mountbatten Windsor, a private citizen with a famous surname and no institutional authority. Meghan becomes Mrs. Mountbatten Windsor, no Duchess, no HRH, no royal leverage. Whatever identity she built around that title disappears overnight because the crown no longer recognizes it. And this is the part people underestimate. Without titles, the phone stops ringing differently. Invitations change, access shrinks, influence evaporates, not because anyone is cruel, but because the system no longer supports them. The monarchy moves on without explanation. William doesn't owe closure, he owes stability. And once the separation is complete, there is no interview, no documentary, no article that can reverse it. The crown doesn't argue with former members, it simply continues without them. Not loud, not dramatic, just absolute. And what makes this even colder, almost chilling, is how little emotion is left in the process. People keep expecting a blow-up, a reaction, a response from William. They're waiting for rage or resentment or some dramatic confrontation. It never comes. That's how you know this is real. When emotion disappears, decisions become permanent. William doesn't need to explain himself to Harry. He doesn't need to justify anything to Meghan. From his point of view, they explained themselves years ago. Every interview, every documentary, every carefully leaked grievance was their explanation. He listened, he watched, and he reached a conclusion that can't be undone. Inside the palace, advisors aren't debating whether this is harsh, they're discussing timing, legal mechanics, order, what happens first and what follows quietly behind it. That's the most terrifying part for the Sussexes. This isn't chaos, it's controlled, it's already mapped out, and once a royal decision reaches this stage, there's no emotional override button. Harry knows this world, or at least he thought he did. He grew up believing blood mattered more than structure. That family could always soften the edges of duty. But William grew up watching something different. He watched how fragile the crown actually is. He watched how quickly public faith can erode, and he learned that when authority hesitates, it doesn't survive. That's why William doesn't argue anymore. He doesn't correct narratives. He doesn't chase headlines. Silence is deliberate, because when the monarchy stops responding, it's not weakness, it's preparation. Meghan, on the other hand, never understood silence as power. She sees it as opportunity, space to fill, a vacuum to control. That's why the constant reinvention, the subtle title usage, the careful wording, the attempts to keep one foot inside the institution while standing completely outside it. To William, that's the final line crossed. You either serve the crown or you stop representing it. There is no hybrid role. No half-royal, half-celebrity existence. That gray area is exactly what he intends to erase. And when people say, but wouldn't this look cruel? William's answer is simple. Weakness looks crueler in the long run. Letting the rules collapse looks crueler. Allowing the monarchy to be used, bent, and monetized without consequence looks crueler. To the public, to history, and to the institution he's sworn to protect. This isn't about punishing Harry. William already mourned the loss of his brother years ago. What's happening now is administrative, procedural, final. Harry isn't being exiled emotionally, he's being removed structurally. And that distinction matters more than people realize. Once titles are gone, Harry doesn't get to speak as a prince anymore. His words carry no constitutional weight. His grievances become personal complaints, not institutional crises. Meghan doesn't get to position herself as a wrong duchess navigating injustice. She becomes a private individual telling her side of a family dispute. And the world listens very differently when the crown is no longer implied. That's why this move terrifies them more than public backlash ever did. Criticism can be spun, sympathy can be manufactured, but irrelevance can't be fixed. William understands time in a way Harry never has. He's thinking decades ahead, not press cycles ahead. He knows that once this cut is made, the story eventually fades. Not in outrage, but in silence. And silence is deadly to those who depend on attention. The monarchy doesn't need Harry and Meghan to fail publicly. It just needs them to exist privately. That's the real endgame. No official rebuttals, no counter-narratives, just absence. And when people ask whether Harry will ever be allowed back, the answer isn't cruel. It's final. You don't reattach something you've deliberately removed to save the body. You move forward healthier, leaner, clearer. William isn't closing a door out of spite. He's sealing it to prevent contamination. And once sealed, it doesn't matter how loudly someone knocks from the other side. The crown doesn't respond. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It endures. And when this is all over, when the titles are gone, when the noise fades, when the Sussex name no longer triggers institutional panic, William won't give interviews about it. He won't gloat. He won't justify himself, because kings don't explain decisions that were never meant to be reversed.